Welcome to the deep dive. If you've ever, found yourself reading a really dense white paper, maybe a policy brief, or just a complex academic article, and felt like, okay, I'm almost there, but I'm missing a few key terms, well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Yeah, today we're doing something a bit different. We're not getting lost in specific policy details or technical jargon. Instead, we're diving into the absolute building blocks of sophisticated, high-level talk, the language itself.
Exactly.
Our source material today is this really well-curated list of 50 advanced academic words. You often see them classed as C2 level, basically, the vocabulary experts use.
And our goal here, our mission, it's fundamentally practical, isn't it? This isn't about just memorizing words for a test.
No, not at all.
We're treating these 50 words as powerful concept containers, like semantic architecture, if you will. When you really master these terms, you kind of shortcut the whole process of explaining nuanced ideas. You can get straight to the complex point without needing, like, 3 extra sentences to set it up.
That's the key.
Yeah.
If you're aiming for real clarity, real rigor in your own writing or your analysis, these words they're indispensable. They give you the precision you need for serious critical thinking. And by understanding their subtle weight, how they're applied, you gain this shortcut. You instantly sound and are more well-informed. So we've grouped them into practical thematic clusters. Help see how they work together.
Okay, so we're going to look at the language of justification of necessity, then vocabulary for, like, quantifying impact, and also those precise words you need for academic integrity and, well, powerful influence. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
All right, let's kick things off with some fundamental vocabulary. Words that describe, internal drive, external risk, and how we respond to that risk. These are really about the dynamics of how things exist and how they're created or produced.
Yeah, a great place to start. This first cluster really speaks to intrinsic motivation on one hand and external reality on the other. So we begin with the energy that fuels long-term commitment, vocation and zealous.
Right, vocation. The definition is a strong feeling of suitability for a career. It's often called a calling, right? A sense of destiny tied to what you do professionally. Our source uses educators as an example, saying teaching is more of a vocation than a job.
And that distinction is huge. I mean, in professional settings, using the word vocation just instantly elevates the conversation.
It does.
You're implying the commitment goes way beyond just the contract. It speaks to fulfillment, to identity, resilience even. Think about it. In really stressful times or when pay is low, it's the sense of vocation that keeps a healthcare worker or a teacher dedicated, not just the money. It's this internal sustaining force.
And that deep internal passion that often shows up outwardly as being zealous. This means showing intense enthusiasm or devotion, being really passionate about something. If you're a zealous supporter of environmental protection, you're not just casually interested. You're applying almost a missionary level of dedication, of energy.
Exactly. Zealous describes that high energy being channeled into an external cause. It's a really powerful state of dedication. Okay, so let's pivot a bit. From internal drive to external forces, we'll focus on instability and resistance, using the words volatile and withstand.
Volatile. We hear this one all the time now, don't we? Especially in economics. It means likely to change rapidly, unpredictably, basically unstable, maybe even explosive. The classic example is the stock market when things are uncertain, but it applies just as much to, say, political climates.
And why is this word so critical?
Well, because volatility is the great disruptor, isn't it? When we use it, we're really pointing to systemic risk. In economics, it signals that, standard models might just break down. But if you apply it elsewhere, maybe geopolitics, a volatile region, means traditional diplomatic solutions might not be enough because the situation is changing faster than people can negotiate. It signals a fundamental lack of control. And the immediate counterforce to that, the response, is the ability to withstand that volatility, to resist it, or endure it successfully. We see the engineering example. Modern bridges are built to withstand strong earthquakes.
Yeah, it's the whole concept of designed resilience. Withstand implies you're facing some external force that's intentionally disruptive, maybe destructive, and you survive it without losing your structural integrity. It's the necessary preparation against the inevitable volatility of the world out there.
That brings us nicely to justification and results, warrant and yield. So warrant means justifying something or making it necessary, authorizing it, like the situation does not warrant immediate intervention.
This word warrant, it's heavy. It carries a lot of ethical and legal weight. It sets a high bar. An action that is warranted is defensible. It's legitimate. If you say an investigation is warranted, you're saying the evidence meets some necessary standard to justify the cost, the time, the attention. It's basically a defense against being told your decision was unnecessary or worse, arbitrary. We'll get to that one later.
So if an action is warranted, the hope, I guess, is that it yields a positive result. Yield means producing or providing something, generating or delivering, like the new research yielded promising results.
And while we often think of yield as positive, we have to remember it simply connects the effort to the output. A tough negotiation might yield only minor concessions, which could be disappointing.
Sure.
Or a high-pressure work environment might yield burnout. So yield closes the loop on productivity. It measures what the investment actually delivered, and that might even contradict the original warrant,
That makes sense. Okay, our final two terms in this first important cluster describe scale and mental speed, widespread and witty. Widespread meaning existing or happening over a large area. It describes the scale, like widespread panic. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and witty describes a really key cognitive skill, showing quick, inventive verbal humor, intellectual sharpness. The expert observation here is interesting. Witty remarks keep an audience engaged precisely because they demand rapid, agile processing of information. It's almost like a performance of intellectual quickness.
What really stands out for me in this first group is the sheer tension,
Yeah.
between internal dedication like vocation, the external danger of something being volatile, and then the calculated response using warrant or building something to withstand. That's 8 really high-impact concepts defining the sort of battlefield of action.
Well put.
Right.
Okay, now we shift gears a bit. Section 2 gives us the language, the tools to measure the world. We're quantifying resources, momentum, the impact of conditions. We're asking how much, how fast, how severe is it?
Right. And we begin with quantity. And this is a crucial, subtle distinction between abundant and ample. They both mean a lot, but how you use them signals a difference in, well, the source and the application.
Exactly. Abundant refers to sheer quantity, existing in really large amounts, plentiful, rich. Our source mentions Bangladesh's abundant solar energy potential. This describes a massive, maybe inherent or naturally occurring resource base.
Whereas ample means enough, or maybe more than enough sufficient. The example given is that candidates were given ample time to complete the task. So the word ample is judged against a specific need or a requirement. Right?
Yes. Let's quickly run through a scenario here because this distinction is often missed, but it's important. Imagine a country has abundant natural gas reserves,
Oh.
huge resource base.
Okay.
But if they only have ample pipeline capacity, meaning just enough to meet current demands, maybe a little more C, then the abundance of the gas itself is almost irrelevant for short-term policy. Policy decisions get dictated by the ample constraint of the infrastructure, not the raw abundance of the supply. That kind of precision in language is vital, especially in things like economic reporting.
Okay, that makes the conceptual difference really crystal clear. Good example. Next up, let's look at the language of momentum. Accelerate and anticipate. Accelerate is the active verb of speed moving or progressing faster. Like government incentives can accelerate digital transformation.
Yeah, accelerate is all about applying intentional force to overcome inertia, basically. In a policy context, it describes deliberately using levers, financial ones, regulatory ones, whatever, to speed up the pace of change beyond its sort of natural speed. It shows a commitment to dynamism.
And when you accelerate something, well, you really should anticipate the results, shouldn't you? Anticipate means to expect or predict something, foresee it. Like economists anticipate strong growth in the coming quarter.
These two are partners in strategic planning, absolutely. You can't responsibly accelerate change without carefully anticipating both the intended and, importantly, the unintended consequences. Forecasting is that essential link between taking action and having foresight.
Makes sense. Okay, now we move to the spectrum of conditions, starting with the negative. Adverse, meaning preventing success or being harmful, unfavorable, detrimental. Like a policy facing adverse public reactions.
Adverse is a strong word. It describes a negative outcome that actively gets in the way of progress. It's not just a disagreement or a slight issue, it's a detrimental condition. Think about medicine. If a drug has adverse side effects, its very effectiveness is undermined by the harm it also creates.
And the proactive response, often the humanitarian one, to an adverse condition is to alleviate it, to make suffering or problems less severe, to ease or relieve them, like technology can help alleviate traffic congestion.
And this contrast is really crucial for understanding policy goals. Are you trying to achieve a positive outcome, like growth or acceleration, or are you primarily focused on alleviating an existing negative outcome, like congestion or poverty? Alleviate suggests managing a problem, reducing its severity, often an ongoing effort, not usually a one-time fix or cure.
Right. Okay, to sort of round out this measuring section, we've got 4 supporting words here that help define results and clarity. Acclaim, that's enthusiastic praise, maybe for a discovery. Adhere, meaning to stick firmly or follow closely, usually a rule or a code of conduct.
And we also need to capture the opposite ends of clarity, ambiguous and apparent. Ambiguous meaning having more than one possible meaning, which leads to confusion.
That's the communication breakdown, essentially. But when something is apparent, it's clearly visible or understood, obvious, evident, like the benefits of teamwork are apparent.
So this section gives us the toolkit, really, to size up the world, abundant ample, describe its speed, accelerate, anticipate, assess its conditions, adverse alleviate, and then evaluate how clearly we're talking about it. Ambiguous, apparent. Quite a set.
Yeah, very useful.
Right.
Okay, now we're shifting focus again, this time to authority, influence, and the dynamics of socioeconomic power. Section 3 covers the vocabulary used when we're discussing who holds authority and how change actually gets driven.
We kick off with status and influence, using the term affluent, meaning having a lot of wealth, prosperous, rich. When we talk about the city's affluent suburbs, we're not just describing, nice houses and high living standards. We're often implicitly marking a line of socioeconomic disparity.
Absolutely. Affluent is a key marker in resource allocation studies, isn't it? It describes where concentrated wealth is located, and it's often used to analyze gaps in public services or infrastructure spending between different areas.
Precisely. And those who have influence, whether it's wealth or expertise, often advocate for specific changes. Advocate means to publicly support or recommend something to promote it or endorse it. Like, experts advocate for renewable energy. This implies a proactive public role, often from a position of authority or recognized expertise aimed at guiding opinion or policy.
Now, contrast that expert role with the word agitate. This one's interesting because it has a duality, right? It can mean just making someone nervous or disturbed. Or, in a political context, it means campaigning vigorously for change, like activists agitated for better labor rights.
And this distinction is really powerful. Advocate often implies working within the established system using recognized channels, whereas agitate often describes a pushing force coming from outside the system, sometimes a necessary provocation against a rigid or unresponsive status quo. Both are forms of influence, sure, but one suggests endorsement and working with a system, the other suggests disruption and challenging it.
That leads us straight back to the question of legitimacy, which connects to arbitrary decisions. Arbitrary means based on random choice or personal whim, rather than any reason or system. Inconsistent, subjective.
This is a high-danger word in governance, in management, anywhere decisions are made. An arbitrary decision, one that lacks a justifiable logical basis, is inherently illegitimate, wouldn't you say?
Definitely.
If a manager makes an arbitrary decision about who gets promoted, they risk immediately destroying trust and probably inviting a legal challenge. Why? Because the decision wasn't warranted by merit or evidence. It signals a failure of systematic thinking, a failure of fairness.
Yet, if the decision is well made, maybe based on good advocacy, it might earn acclaim, which is enthusiastic praise and applause, a kind of positive feedback loop for those who made the right call or had influence.
Exactly. Acclaim validates the influence of the advocates and potentially the legitimacy of the decision makers themselves.
Okay, now let's look at the language of transparency, or maybe the lack of it. Blatant and boast. Blatant means done openly and without any shame, obvious, flagrant.
Blatant wrongdoing is often seen as the worst kind because it implies a total disregard for the rules, like they're not even trying to hide it. Blatant corruption within the agency isn't hidden corruption. It's corruption that's visible to everyone, which suggests a complete lack of fear of consequences. It's audacious in a negative way.
And boast means to talk with excessive pride, essentially, to brag. Now, a city can technically boast a rich history, using it neutrally, but the word often carries the implication of overstating achievement, drawing maybe too much attention to success, perhaps to mask some other deficiency. It highlights the contrast between stating facts and, well, self-aggrandizing presentation.
And we should probably slot benevolent back in here briefly. We talked about benevolent actions being well-meaning and kind. When analyzing policy or actions, it's often crucial to try and separate actions that are genuinely benevolent, aimed at improving general welfare, from those that might be self-serving, even if they're presented with a positive spin. It's about the ethical measure of intent, really.
Good point. Okay, finally, just rounding out this action-oriented cluster, we have brisk, meaning quick and active, like a brisk walk or a brisk discussion, and cease, meaning to stop or discontinue something, like a factory ceasing operations. So yeah, this section really shows us the forces driving change: wealth, advocacy, protest, and that ever-present threat of arbitrary power.
A complex interplay, for sure. All right, now we move to what I think is the bedrock of any credible analysis, especially for you, the listener, engaging with academic papers or serious reports. This section focuses on the critical vocabulary you absolutely need for integrity and logical structure in arguments.
Yeah, this is fundamental stuff. We start with the non-negotiables, the foundations of truth: candid, authentic, and the ongoing battle against bias.
Let's take candid. It means truthful and straightforward, frank, honest. A candid response is one that bypasses maybe diplomatic niceties or spin to deliver the truth directly. It signals reliability in communication. You trust a candid answer more.
And that honesty, that candor, is really the gateway to getting authentic results, isn't it? Authentic means genuine and true, not fake or counterfeit. Our source mentions examiners valuing authentic ideas that are supported by evidence. In research, how do we establish authenticity? It's not always obvious.
Well, authenticity in data usually requires rigorous methodology. Things like ensuring the experiment is repeatable, using triangulation, comparing different data sources. Data is considered authentic if it reliably reflects the reality it claims to measure. If a scientist gets results they can't reproduce, the data's authenticity is immediately questioned, even if there was no deliberate fraud involved.
But the constant threat lurking behind authenticity is bias, defined as a preference or prejudice for or against something, partiality, an inclination. The example focuses on attempts to remove researcher bias. Is that even fully possible?
That's the core methodological struggle, isn't it? I mean, advanced research accepts that human nature includes bias. It's unavoidable to some degree, so good research doesn't just pretend bias doesn't exist. It strives to define it, measure its potential impact, and mitigate its influence as much as possible, through transparency mainly. Being open about funding sources, explaining methodology choices clearly, acknowledging subjective interpretations, these are all ways researchers demonstrate they tried to be candid and that the data remains as authentic as possible despite the potential human inclination towards bias.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's shift from the integrity of the data to the clarity of how it's presented. We want to avoid ambiguous language, right? We're aiming for what is apparent through a structure that is coherent.
Exactly. We've touched on ambiguous, unclear, and apparent evident before. The structural goal that links them, that allows you to move from ambiguity to apparent clarity, is coherence, meaning logically connected and consistent.
So if an essay or an argument is coherent, the ideas just flow smoothly, the connection between one point and the next feels logically sound, it makes sense. A lack of coherence, on the other hand, leaves the reader struggling to connect the dots, which instantly introduces ambiguity, even if the individual sentences are clear. Coherence is like the glue holding the argument together.
Precisely. It's what separates just a random list of facts from a really compelling narrative or a persuasive argument.
Okay, finally, in this section, we deal with the mechanics of building knowledge, compile, and cite.
Right. First, you have to compile the data or information. That means collecting it from different sources. Researchers, for instance, compiled data from over 20 different studies. This is the gathering phase, the assembly of the raw intellectual material.
And then once you've compiled it, organized it, analyzed it, you absolutely must cite it. That means mentioning it as evidence, quoting it, or referring back to the original source. Always cite reliable sources. It's drilled into us for a reason.
And citing is what transforms that raw compiled data into validated evidence within your argument. Without proper citation, the argument, no matter how coherent it might seem on the surface, lacks authenticity because you can't trace it back. It lacks credibility. So yeah, this cluster, from candid all the way to cite, really encapsulate the engine of academic and analytical credibility.
Absolutely essential. Okay, let's move into the execution phase now. How we actually communicate effectively, how we set limits or face them, and how groups manage to arrive at decisions together.
We can start with the communication chain. Concise, convey, and convince. Think of it as a three-stage roadmap for getting your point across and having an impact.
Stage 1, concise. meaning giving a lot of information clearly and briefly, to the point. The source material emphasizes that concise writing is inherently more effective. Why is brevity valued so highly in advanced discourse? It seems counterintuitive sometimes.
Well, I think it's because advanced discourse, whether it's academic or professional, really respect the high cost of the reader's or listener's time and attention. When you write or speak concisely, you're essentially proving that you've already done the hard work of distillation.
Oh.
You've refined your argument down to its absolute essence. Writing that isn't concise, that rambles, often suggests the writer hasn't fully processed their own complex ideas yet.
Right. And that conciseness then allows you to effectively convey your idea, to transmit it, to express it clearly. The example about body language conveying confidence is a great nonverbal illustration of how information gets transmitted.
And if you manage to convey the idea effectively, clearly, concisely, you significantly increase your chances to convince the audience, to persuade them to actually believe or accept what you're saying. Strong data presented concisely creates the best possible opportunity to convince your readers that your argument is valid. It's like a powerful chain reaction. Concise, convince.
Nice framework. Okay, and now for the vocabulary of limits and compliance. This is a dense little group. Constrain, confine, comply, conform, and adhere. Let's try to separate the two types of restrictions first. Constrain and confine.
Good idea. Constrain usually implies an external limitation, often one that's unavoidable. It curbs your options. The example was budget constraints delayed the project. It's a limitation imposed on you by outside reality, by circumstances.
Whereas confine, although it also means limit, often describes setting an intentional internal boundary. You choose to enclose the scope of something, like the research is confined to specific industrial systems. A researcher actively chooses to confine their study, maybe for methodological rigor or focus. They are constrained, perhaps, by time or funding. That nuance tells the reader whether the limit was chosen strategically or forced upon the situation.
Exactly. Now for the compliance, words comply, conform, and adhere. They all relate to following rules or norms, but with slightly different flavors.
Right. Comply often sounds legalistic or mandatory, doesn't it? Factories must comply with environmental regulations. There's an obligation there. Conform seems more about fitting in with accepted standards or expectations, like products must conform to safety standards. And adhere feels a bit more personal, like a firm, principled, sticking to a code of conduct or a belief system. Students adhere to the honor code. The necessity of these actions just underscores how important systematic order is in complex societies and systems.
Well said. Okay, let's look at the internal process of thinking versus external challenge. Contemplate and contradict. Contemplate means to think deeply about something, to ponder, reflect. It suggests dedicated, serious internal consideration, not just a passing thought.
Like graduates contemplating studying abroad, that's a big decision requiring deep thought.
Right, and contradict is the external test of ideas. It means to say the opposite of something, to oppose or dispute it. The example was the witness statement contradicting the physical evidence. Critical thinking absolutely demands both skills. You have to contemplate the evidence rigorously yourself, and then, when you spot inconsistencies or opposing views, you must be able to recognize and analyze the contradiction.
That intellectual loop, that process of contemplation and checking for contradiction, naturally leads us towards collective decision-making, doesn't it? Which brings us to collaborate and consensus.
Yes, collaborate meaning to work jointly with others, to team up. The example was ABB collaborating with others to advance automation. That's the necessary action, the process of working together.
And consensus is often the desired result of that collaboration, achieving general agreement among the group. Harmony, unity on a decision. Collaboration is the process. Consensus is the hoped-for outcome, like achieving a strong consensus on a new policy after much debate.
And finally, the way you deliver your contributions in these processes. Being assertive. Confident and forceful, but not aggressive in expressing yourself. Why is this critical? Because after all this intellectual work, contemplating, compiling data, collaborating, maybe reaching a consensus, you need the confidence and clarity to assert those findings or your position effectively. It's the confident presentation that signals mastery and conviction.
Yeah, without assertiveness, all that good work might just get overlooked.
Precisely.
Wow, we've covered 50 pretty intricate concepts. Now, just to wrap things up, let's bring some of the most conceptually significant words back together. Let's try and synthesize the whole journey by tracing the life cycle of a major idea or project.
That sounds like a great way to pull it all together.
Yeah.
Okay, so that cycle has to start with conceive. To form an idea or a plan in the mind, to imagine it, envision it. Every major project, even one that was first conceived way back in 2015, begins as just a spark of thought, an initial concept. It's the birthplace of innovation, really.
Okay, so the idea is conceived. Then, to make it happen, the project often demands audacious action. Audacious meaning showing a willingness to take bold, significant risks. Like the company's audacious plan that led to rapid innovation. It's that courageous leap from just thinking about it to high-stakes execution, putting skin in the game.
And the combination of that risk, all that effort, is hopefully to attain the goal to achieve or accomplish something significant. So you have conception, then audacious execution, and finally, attainment. That sequence really defines success in almost any complex environment, doesn't it?
It does. But we need to pause here and consider the intent behind all that action. This brings us back to benevolent. We discussed its definition: well-meaning, kind, charitable. Why is assessing intent so crucial when we're analyzing attainment, analyzing success?
Because attainment without an ethical foundation, without good intent, can actually be quite destructive. Benevolent action contrasts fundamentally with actions that are purely self-serving or worse, arbitrary uses of power. Thinking about benevolence allows us to analyze not just was the goal attained, but also was the attainment responsible? Was it well-intended? Did it benefit others? It acts as a kind of ethical filter we can apply to high-level decisions and outcomes.
That's a really important layer.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, let's summarize the importance of the knowledge itself, bringing it right back to you, the listener, and your goal. Seeking a comprehensive and crucial understanding.
Right. Comprehensive means covering everything, completely being thorough, extensive. Your goal in engaging with a deep dive like this is ideally to gain a comprehensive understanding of this advanced academic lexicon, making sure no key concept is missed, seeing how they all fit together.
And the final word of the 50, crucial, meaning extremely important or necessary, essential, vital.
And this vocabulary is crucial, isn't it? Because these 50 terms are essentially the core connectors, the semantic glue that holds together any sophisticated argument or analysis. Mastering them moves you past just a superficial understanding. It gives you the necessary tools to engage assertively and with real precision in pretty much any field. They allow you, the listener, to shift from just reacting to the discourse around you to actively shaping it.
That's a powerful outcome. Hashtag outro. Well, what an extensive deep dive that was. We really covered some ground, didn't we? Moving from the internal foundational drive of a vocation, through the engineering of resilience needed to withstand external volatility, all the way to the necessity of building a coherent structure to achieve consensus.
Absolutely. By internalizing these 50 concept containers, you've genuinely equipped yourself. You now have the means to process even the densest professional or academic information more quickly and, crucially, to express your own insights with much greater precision. You've acquired the vocabulary to articulate not just what happened, but the scale of it, widespread, the underlying intent, benevolent, and the necessary justification, warrant behind actions.
So as you move back into your week, your work, your studies, here's a final thought for you to maybe contemplate, built on this lexicon. We talked quite a bit about the importance of being assertive in your communication and also about the necessity of actions that alleviate existing problems. So consider a challenge you're facing right now. Which area of your work, or maybe even your personal life, requires you to be more assertive in setting clear, perhaps internal confines or boundaries?
Or maybe flip it around. Identify one specific problem you're currently dealing with, and then think, how could you most effectively alleviate it, even partially, using one of these newly mastered concepts? Perhaps by deliberately ensuring your next communication about it is ruthlessly concise, thereby helping you convey your message more powerfully and hopefully convince others. The key now is to listen actively for these 50 terms in the high-stakes discussions happening around you. Once you start spotting them, you'll realize they truly are the backbone of almost all rigorous analysis and argument.
That's it for this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us. We genuinely hope you feel significantly more well-informed and critically better equipped to communicate your own complex ideas.
Until next time.